Okay, Tyler.
Hey, how you doing?
You know how Jordan was supposed to meet us?
Yes.
Well, the Mass Effect 2 DLC came out, and well, kind of told us he has to play through with every character class first.
Okay.
Just start over a new game, everyone. So we won't see him for a few days.
Well, Mass Effect 2 is his game, so I understand it.
In the meantime, he left us a little something, a little note, a mystery game we were supposed to review in his absence. Only clue is that it's a famous crime solver versus an infamous criminal.
So, Nancy Drew versus the Boston Strangler?
Maybe. Maybe it's the Mystery Gang versus the Manson family.
I doubt that, but that would be a neat game. We need something more realistic. The Hardy Boys versus Jeffrey Dahmer.
Let's see.
Let's see. Open that thing up.
Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper.
Really? Oh, I remember this game.
I tried to forget this game.
It wasn't that bad.
Yes, it was!
Alright, how? How?
This is epic badness. I mean, it puts both Sherlock Holmes and Jack the Ripper to shame. A fictional character and a mass murderer. This is a bad game.
But you have to admit the premise is the only reason why we bought it.
Yes, that's what caught us. We went into the local game store trying to find a shitty game to review.
And I was thinking, alright, what do we... I picked out a whole bunch of them, and I just saw on the bottom shelf Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper, and I could not believe it.
I couldn't believe it either, but sadly the bottom shelf is where it should have stayed.
And sadly, I'm the one that had to pay for it.
I'm sorry.
It's only like $20, so...
But honestly, and it was a new game.
$20 for a new game.
That was our first indicator there, people.
Also the fact I had never heard of it until then.
Never heard of the developer. But the first clue is that everything on the box is in English and French. Just little sign.
Alright.
Usually, that would mean a French-Canadian developer. Anyway, back on
But
top.
who cares about the developer?
Back to the game. This is Jack the Ripper and Sherlock Holmes right on his tail.
Who would not want to play as a game where you're Sherlock Holmes, the world's greatest crime detective, following after the most infamous criminal that England has ever had?
Sounds like a great premise.
But then again, most premises are great on paper. It's just how they go about
This is
executing.
this game. Great on paper, bad in your console.
True paper. It's all throughout the game. You're constantly having to read your notes and reams of that stuff you're reading.
Reading inside a video game is bad, people. Don't do it. Not now. Not ever.
Unless if it's like Final Fantasy 13, where reading is the only way you can figure out the story. But
True. But anyway, back on point. Sherlock Holmes vs. Jack the Ripper was epically bad.
I probably wouldn't go
How
that
could you
far.
ever defend it?
The story.
Sure. You think you have everything figured out, and then out of nowhere, they just throw a curveball.
Well, we're not going to tell you who it is, but I guarantee you, if you read it up online, you're not going to know who it was.
This is M. Night Shyamalan style twist. It's not something that you could ever comprehend just coming out at... Anyway, back to the shit. You are Sherlock Holmes and Watson. Half the game you do play as Watson. And you are hot on the trail of Jack the Ripper. When a game is telling the story instead of making gay jokes between Holmes and Watson.
They're not gay, they're just British.
Exactly. They are not gay people.
Even though they do live together, even though Watson's married.
And you never see his wife.
He supposedly visits her, but...
And then there was one point in the game where Sherlock put Watson in makeup.
Hey, that was to recreate a crime scene.
Sure it was.
Alright, so we've talked about the story. What else? How about the gameplay? What'd you think?
A poor excuse to fit every puzzle imaginable in there.
But puzzles can be good, you know.
These puzzles weren't. They were infuriating.
Not all of them.
Okay, one or two were simple enough and intriguing enough to actually keep your attention. A few would make me pull my hair out if it were long enough for me to get a good grip on it.
But at least they varied. It's not like the same puzzle occurring over and over again.
You never see the same puzzle twice.
Oh. So, it's
other than
constantly
recreating
making
the crime scene and using logic. I appreciate how they're trying to break down Sherlock's detective method. Once again, great on paper, bad in the game.
It's exactly how you would think a crime solver like he would, how he would break it down.
Yes, but it's like...
He uses logical reasoning instead of just saying, I think this is how it happened. He actually proves how it would happen.
That's one thing I did like. I mean, they did break down the crime scene investigation into something that Sherlock Holmes really would do. The story isn't completely far-fetched until the end, but that's just my opinion. And another good point about it, the easiest 1,000 gamer points you will ever find.
Aside from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I think this may be easier.
Yeah.
You find a walkthrough for this game, and in 4 hours you'll have an easy 1,000 gamer points.
Yeah, it was easy to get 1,000, but I did it without a walkthrough, so...
So it spent you considerably longer.
Yeah, I probably spent maybe 6-7 hours on this game.
So that's... I spent roughly half the time in this crap fest. Lucky me.
But at least it's easy to get around. It's not like a game that inhibits your movement. It's very smooth.
It loads every 3 steps. Sure, the loading screen's fast, but it's every 3 steps.
Which is why I just teleported everywhere that way.
You can teleport everywhere. Another praise for the game, because it makes me experience less of it. There are open streets that you will walk into an invisible wall and have a dialogue of, I can't go here. I thought this was supposed to be a somewhat open-ended type game. And you are investigating.
Which technically an investigating game would work better, open-ended, but still it was a nice experience. You know, it did seem like you were a detective, which is what this game is about anyway. Though you're constantly going back to the Batcave just so that way you can solve stuff they can easily do on the street.
Well, there were some lab work puzzles, but still, I mean, it didn't set the atmosphere that well.
Alright, so, obviously you didn't like the game, so what would you say about it?
The voice acting was terrible. Everybody had... It looked like they decided to do a British accent by throwing cotton balls in their mouth.
Actually, I think that's how they did do it.
Yes, because everybody back then did have cotton balls in their mouth. What a known fact. And they also, everybody used cycled animations. Like this one police officer who would constantly flick his finger up into the air while sounding like he was pretending to be a ghost.
But,
not to mention the world's most incompetent police, where they shredded up witness testimony and threw it into a wastebasket.
at least the game didn't have a habit of bogging you down with tons of useless information. Almost everything they told you at some point was useful.
At some point it was.
So it's not like one of those games where you're constantly having to seek through information just to figure out what's pliable and what's not.
Yeah, given.
So, that's pretty much the game in a nutshell. There's not much to it, besides you can swap between first and third person also.
At will.
Which I'll tell you, if you get this game, first person all the way.
You walk faster. There's no animations whenever you click on something if you're in first person.
And it's easier to find this stuff in first person.
Another point.
So, what would you say about this game?
It's bad. It's
bad.
really bad. I mean,
Would you recommend it anyway?
Never.
I'm going to go ahead and say, if you get this game, rent it and rent it for the PC. Unless if you're a gamer point booster, then you have no choice but to get it for the 360. But by all means, it's a rent. Do not buy.
And we barely consider it a rent, people. I think I would rather deal with the real Jack the Ripper than this game.
So I guess that's our review. Just remember that no game suspects our Inquisition.
And hopefully, Jordan will be back by the next time we review something.